This time, it is his son that is the main defendant.
With rapper Diddy in the news for his recent string of sexual misconduct allegations, people have started looking at those around him, including his friends and even his family, and what they discovered about Diddy's son shocked everyone, and to make matters worse, it has been caught on camera. Diddy, whose real name is Sean Combs, has a 26-year-old son named Christian, and it's Christian who has been getting a lot of attention recently, and for all of the wrong reasons. Not only has his dad been accused of some pretty horrendous crimes, something which must be equal parts disturbing and horrifying for any child, but now people are digging into his behavior and finding some pretty dark things. But it's the way in which it affected his victim that is the most heartbreaking thing of all, and how it changed her life for the worse. Because of what Christian did to her, she was left damaged, broken, and with her reputation in tatters, all while Christian walked away from the incident, carefree and without repercussion. But that was all about to change. One of the lawyers who filed a lawsuit against Diddy on behalf of a producer is also filing another lawsuit, but this time it's leveled at Diddy's son Christian. The incident itself is bad enough, but there were signs that this was coming. In the original lawsuit filed against Diddy, there was mention of an incident on a private luxury yacht where Christian did something pretty heinous to another passenger on there. But because the suit was aimed at Diddy, this claim against Christian was almost forgotten about, and we're sure he thought he had gotten away with it, until that second lawsuit was filed. The incident happened in December of 2022. Christian was on a chartered yacht that was sailing around the beautiful island of St. Martin. It was something that he had done many times before, on many different yachts, in many different countries. It was one of the perks of his fame and fortune. But on that yacht in question were several members of staff, including a woman named Grace O'Marquet.
So according to the lawsuit, O'Marquet says that she had been working as a steward, providing food and drinks on that yacht for a 12-hour period.
She was working as a steward, ferrying drinks and food to the people who were partying on the yacht. It was a hedonistic cruise, one filled with music, booze, and scantily clad people. The entire cruise was meant to last for 12 hours, and while it was a fun one for the guests, it could get kind of tiring for those like Grace who were working. But at some point, Christian noticed Grace, who was 25 at the time, and approached her. He offered her several shots of alcohol, and while she initially said no as she was working, she felt incredibly pressured by him and gave in, doing as he repeatedly requested.
Christian reportedly arrived very intoxicated and then proceeded to pressure O'Marquet to take shots of tequila.
As Grace drank the shots, she started to get woozy, and her senses became dulled. While she found it strange, Grace put it down to the fact that she had worked hard for several hours in the hot sun, and the drink must have gone to her head very quickly. But this was when things took a darker turn. As Grace tried to steady herself and shake off the dull, tired feeling that had washed over her, Christian started to kiss her neck, her legs and body, and paw at her breasts and other more intimate areas. This was not what she wanted, and at first, she didn't have the strength to push Christian away. It was a scary thing. As usually, Grace was the kind of person to fight back and defend herself. But there she was, feeling strangely lethargic and having an out-of-body experience as Christian did whatever he wanted to her. But she had to come back to her senses and do something about it. While Grace was feeling intoxicated, far too intoxicated for the amount she had drunk, she was still able to force herself to resist Christian's advances and tell him to leave her alone.
O'Marquet reportedly told Christian, quote, "Excuse me, you don't touch my legs like that. I'll move my legs where I want to. If I want to do this, then I will. You don't touch my legs like that."
Grace made an excuse to leave the room. She told Christian that she was not able to stay with him unless it had been approved by her supervisor. However, she knew full well that the supervisor was asleep and wouldn't grant her to stay with just one of the yacht's passengers. It was a clever plot for her to get out of the situation, but despite her good idea, the assault didn't end there. Rather than listen to her warnings and leave her alone, Christian decided to go and find Grace again, asking her to find him a place to sleep for the night. While she was still annoyed at Christian, Grace did as he asked and led him to the cinema room on the yacht, which doubled as a sleeping quarters for the guests. It was here that things got worse. Christian blocked her path from exiting the room and pinned her up against the wall, taking off his clothes and trying to force her to perform on him. While she was still woozy from the incident earlier, Grace was strong enough and had the presence of mind to try to fight him off again, and it's a good thing she did. Who knows how far Christian would have taken it if Grace had not been willing to fight back. The amount of worry and distress Grace felt in that moment must have been overwhelming. Imagine someone twice your size trying to stop you from heaving a room and forcing you to do all kinds of depraved acts. But despite still feeling drugged, she managed to escape before things were taken even further. For the rest of the cruise, Grace heard nothing from Christian. She was surprised, as she thought that he might try to find her again to finish what he had started, but there was no sign of him. Then Grace thought that maybe he wanted to apologize for what he had done and admit that maybe he had taken things too far. But when she saw him departing the yacht, laughing and joking around with his friends, it was clear that Christian had no regrets for what he had done and didn't expect any consequences for his actions. This was when she knew that she couldn't just let it go. Grace wasn't one to just brush things like this under the carpet and knew that she had to speak up. Who knows how many other women Christian had been like that to, and how many of them had not been brave enough to report it or fight back because of who Christian and his father were. But Grace was not like other people. She was going to be strong and rightfully seek justice for what had happened to her. With the yacht cruise finally over, Grace told the captain what had happened, and incredibly, he didn't believe her. He thought that she had been making it up, and there was no sort of investigation into what had happened. For the next several months, the captain of the yacht retaliated against her for apparently slandering one of the guests, Christian, and she was ultimately fired for the incident. Something that left Grace shocked and devastated. She had only been trying to do her job, and she had been assaulted. It seemed unfair and unjust that not only did she lose her job over the incident, but Christian was still free to do it again to someone who might not be as strong and lucky as Grace was. Heartbroken, Grace didn't know what to do next. Upon reflection, she knew that something wasn't right about the yacht cruise. She had initially thought it was a simple, family-only kind of cruise, and she expected the mood to be fun but relaxed. But it was clear from the amount of people on the boat that this was anything but a family affair, and she was shocked to see open use and all kinds of workers on the yacht.
She believes that the alcohol on the yacht had been laced with drugs because she says women would have one drink and then almost immediately pass out or start falling over.
Yet no one believed her story. They looked at her as if she was trying to slander Christian, a celebrity, for her own 15 minutes of fame. But that was not the case at all. If only there was some way to prove to the authorities that Christian had assaulted her. Well, luckily there was.
She reportedly has photos of the bruises that she says were caused by this event with Christian Combs.
On Grace's phone were actual photos that she had taken showing the injuries caused when she was assaulted. It shows marks left by his hands and proves that someone really had done something to her on that yacht cruise. Finally, she had some kind of proof, but there was one small issue. It couldn't be proved that it was Christian himself that had left the marks. Anyone could have done that, and while no one could deny something had happened to Grace that day, there was no evidence of the perpetrator. It was another frustrating dead end. Grace still couldn't conclusively tell authorities that it had been Christian that hurt her, even though she knew in her heart that he was the one who had done it. Grace thought all was lost. That was until some new details emerged. Details that could not only vindicate her and her story, but also pin the blame directly on Christian.
And according to Miss Omarkey, Jones taped this event with her. Yes.
Someone had actually filmed Christian assaulting Grace. There was clear footage depicting what had happened, and Grace was delighted to find out that everything she said could now be backed up and proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. And the person who had captured the footage? Producer Rod Jones, one of the people who was suing Diddy himself for his own while working for the rap star. I'm sure you've all heard about the sordid freak-off parties that Christian's disgraced rapper P. Diddy would throw for his A-lister friends.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, for all those in London that don't know what happens to the white man when he comes to a P. Diddy party, this is what happens to the white man.
Sean Combs, better known by his stage name P. Diddy, or Diddy for short, was recently arrested and indicted by a grand jury on charges of trafficking, racketeering, and transportation for prostitution. The accusations center around his notorious freak-off parties, where Diddy allegedly arranged elaborate performances involving multiple men, women. There was plenty of illicit and illegal activity going off behind those closed doors, including the use of underage workers, trafficked people.
When they come to one of my parties, this is what happens to them. I put him to sleep.
Next day, right?
You put the drink on his head.
There it is.
Countless household celebs have been to Diddy's freak-off parties, including Leonardo DiCaprio, Justin Bieber, Usher, Mariah Carey, and Kim Kardashian, to name only a few. But there were also people from the music industry there too, including rap producer Rod Jones. He had been working extremely closely with Diddy at the time, basically living with him while they worked on his album. Rod was assaulted by Diddy and forced into all kinds of compromising situations with celebrities who have yet to be named by the court documents. Rod was one of the first to file a suit against Diddy, but it opened the floodgates, allowing others who had suffered at the hands of the rapper to also come forward and have their say about what happened to them. And it was this that gave Grace the courage to come out and speak about what Christian had done to her. When Grace filed her lawsuit, the world was shocked. They knew that Diddy had been up to no good, but they had no idea that Christian was also a people and wantonly doing things, thinking he would get away with it. But the lawsuit included some more damning evidence against Christian.
The lawsuit provides transcripts of audio recordings.
It seemed that audio recordings further pinned this crime on him. You can hear kissing sounds, Grace telling Christian not to touch her, and her asking if she had been. The evidence really was piling up, and it seemed that his past actions were finally coming to catch up with him. The actual lawsuit accuses Christian of assault, battery, sexual assault, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Grace is also pressing charges for how her life has been turned upside down since the assault. She had been happy working on the luxury yacht as a steward, but ever since her encounter with Christian, her life had been on a downward spiral. She had lost her job, lost her credibility, and suffered all kinds of emotional anguish and distress. Will a judge look at all of this evidence and side with Grace? Well, the likelihood is that they will.
And remember, when we're talking a civil case, when we're talking lawsuits, the burden of proof is much lower than a criminal case.
This is not a case where Grace has to prove Christian's guilt beyond any reasonable doubt. All she has to do is show that it is more likely to have happened than not happened. And while some may argue this isn't the fairest way of doing it, no one can argue with the fact that Grace has some explosive evidence, from the footage recorded by Rod Jones, to the audio recordings and transcripts, to the photographic evidence. No judge will look at the mountain of evidence and decide that it never happened. And while Christian will no doubt have an army of crack lawyers on his side, trying to get him off of the crime and keep him out of jail alongside his father, Grace's case is airtight. She was abused by Christian. He tried to sexually assault her, and he caused her all kinds of damages, both physically, emotionally, and financially. And it's only a matter of time until Christian's actions finally have their consequences. So yes, this case will doubtlessly end up in court, and when it does, Grace will be able to have the last laugh. She has been able to prove her innocence, back up her story, and show Christian for what he is, a criminal and an egotistical sexual abuser just like his father. The two of them thought that they were above the law and that they could get away with doing whatever they wanted. Well, now their empire is crumbling, and it's only a matter of time till Christian and his father are sentenced for their heinous crimes against Grace, Rob, and countless other victims. So now it's over to you. What did you think of this frustrating and angering story? How would you have reacted if you were in Grace's position, being assaulted by Christian on that luxury yacht cruise? Make sure you leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments section down below. Please give this video a like, a subscribe, and maybe even share it with a friend. And as always, thanks for watching.